stray. A simple world where love would bloom in every corner of the living room. Oh, the golden thread, it ties us tight through black and white into the light. A real love, it's always there. Classic moments beyond compare.
Welcome back to The Golden Thread, Lessons from Classic TV. I'm your host, Bob. These episodes are brought to you by the Classic TV Preservation Society, founded by Herbie J Pilato. There's a certain kind of evil that doesn't shout. It doesn't slam doors or raise its voice. It doesn't look frantic or out of control. It wears a calm expression. It speaks carefully. It believes it has already won. That's the kind of danger this story asks us to sit with. A much darker story than usual. Not the kind that explodes, but the kind that convinces itself it is reasonable. At the center of this episode is a man who trusts his mind more than anything else. He has built his life on precision, intellect, and the belief that emotion clouds judgment. He prides himself on being measured, logical, and disciplined. The kind of person who believes that if something goes wrong, it's because someone else failed to think far enough ahead. And when his marriage becomes unbearable to him, not dramatic, not violent, just quietly intolerable, he doesn't rage, he plans. What's chilling here isn't the fact that the act itself, it's the confidence. The confidence that everything has been accounted for. The confidence that morality is something primitive people need. Not someone as intelligent as he is. The confidence that if no one can prove a thing, then nothing truly wrong has occurred. And that's where the golden thread begins to tighten. The murder itself is almost antiseptic in its execution. No frenzy, no loss of control, just steps followed carefully like a recipe. Afterwards, the man doesn't collapse into panic. He doesn't flee. He settles into certainty. He believes that cleverness has replaced consequence. And for a while, it seems like he might be right. What makes this episode quietly devastating is the arrival of the investigator, not as a force of brute authority, but as a patient, observant presence. This is not a man who rushes. He listens. He notices. He allows space. And in that space, something fascinating happens. The criminal begins to talk. Not because he has to, but because he wants to. Because cleverness craves recognition. The man cannot resist demonstrating how superior his thinking is. He drops hints. He poses hypotheticals. He constructs imaginary scenarios, all the while convinced that his intellect places him safely beyond suspicion. But something else is happening underneath the conversation. The more he speaks, the more his need to be seen reveals him. Because cleverness without conscience doesn't just commit harm, it needs an audience. This is where the episode becomes less about crime and more about character. The man is not undone by evidence. He is undone by arrogance. He wants credit for his brilliance. He wants acknowledgement. He wants someone, anyone, to understand just how perfect his plan was. And that desire becomes the crack. Because conscience doesn't vanish when it's ignored. It waits. Sometimes it waits in silence. Sometimes it waits in discomfort. and sometimes it waits in the unbearable need to be known. The golden thread running through this story is sharp and unyielding. When intelligence detaches from empathy, it begins to rot from the inside. This man doesn't think of himself as cruel. He thinks of himself as correct. He doesn't believe he has done something evil. He believes he has solved a problem. But human beings are not problems to be solved. And when we begin treating them that way, something essential breaks. What makes this episode linger is that it never lets us escape into distance. It doesn't ask us to condemn a monster. It asks us to examine a mindset. Because most of us will never commit a crime like this, thank goodness. But many of us have had moments where we chose to be right instead of kind, where we justified harm because we could explain it, where we hid behind logic to avoid responsibility, where we convinced ourselves that intent mattered more than impact. This story whispers a warning. The mind can always find a reason. Only the heart can tell the truth. There's a moment, subtle, almost imperceptible, where the man realizes something has shifted. Not in the room, but inside himself. The certainty begins to wobble. The confidence thins. The brilliance that once felt like armor starts to feel like exposure. Because living without conscience is not freedom. It's isolation. It cuts you off from remorse, yes, but it also cuts you off from peace. It protects you from guilt, but it also robs you of rest. It keeps you clever, but it leaves you alone with your thoughts. And eventually, that solitude becomes unbearable. The episode ends not with triumph, but with inevitability. Not because the plan was flawed, but because human beings are not built to live without moral gravity. We are shaped by accountability. We are steadied by empathy. We are kept whole by conscience. When those things are discarded, cleverness doesn't save us. It exposes us. So here is the thread to carry with you. Wisdom is not the same as intelligence. Wisdom includes the human cost. If you ever find yourself proud of how neatly you justified something that hurt someone else, pause. That pause is your conscience asking to be let back in. Open the door. Because cleverness can win an argument, but only compassion can keep a soul intact. Thank you guys. Thank you for joining me for episode 25 of The Golden Thread. Until next time, remember, being smart is easy. Being humane is the real work. And that work is always worth doing. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Walking down the lanes of yesterday,